Welcome back to 1600. This week, Merrill Lynch CEO John Thain resigned after an earnings report revealed his investment bank lost $15.3 billion last quarter. You may remember Thain as the CEO who had a cameo on this show when he demanded a $10 million bonus after his company accepted billions in federal bailout money. He did not end up getting that bonus, but now we've learned, thanks to the Financial Times, that he did rush through over $3 billion in bonuses last fall for other Merrill employees. It gets worse. As first reported by CNBC, at the same time Thain was preaching cost cuts, he also was lavishly redecorating his office space to the tune of $1.2 million, courtesy of a decorator to the stars whose next job, where he will be paid much less, is at the White House. Among the big-ticket items, $87,000 for an area rug, $68,000 for a 19th century credenza, and $87,000 for a pair of guest chairs, $13,000 for a chandelier, $28,000 for 4 pairs of curtains, and $230,000 to Thain's driver for 1 year's work. Joining us to talk about this outrage and who should be held accountable is nationally syndicated radio talk show host Ed Schultz and Michael Smerconish, who's a radio talk show host on WPHT in Philadelphia and a columnist for both the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News. Ed, $230,000 for a driver for 1 year?
A lot of people would like to have that, David, but this is exactly the kind of story, number one, the Obama administration doesn't need, because they've got to sell their stimulus package and more government handouts to stimulate the economy. I spoke with someone on the Finance Committee the other day in the Senate. They can't account for the TARP money. It happened too fast. It went at a Patriot Act speed. So this is what infuriates taxpayers, and it makes it harder to get things done when you see abuse like this. Yeah. And there's certainly no way that they can go back and do anything about it. So you got to have more checks and balances in the government if you're going to do this kind of stuff. And it makes it doubly hard on the Obama administration starting out. And I think he had to address this today. And he put it right where it had to be.
Well, we're going to talk about Obama's comments in just a second. But, Michael, I want to bring you in. What was John Thain thinking in all of this? All right. Well, apparently Michael can't hear us. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and play the Obama soundbite. Here's Barack Obama talking about this very issue with John Thain and the bonuses at a time when Merrill Lynch was in severe trouble. Here's the president. Watch.
Some of the reports that we've seen over the last couple of days about companies that have received taxpayer assistance, then going out and renovating bathrooms or offices, or in other ways not managing those dollars appropriately. Those all have to be part and parcel of a reform package if we're going to be responsible in dealing with this economic crisis.
Michael, that's probably a very appropriate response, but the matter-of-fact tone, does that necessarily match the outrage that I'm sure some of your listeners are expressing these days?
You know, what's going on Wall Street and with the economy generally, I think beyond most folks' comprehension. It is certainly beyond mine, but a $35,000 toilet that ultimately we're paying for because of the TARP, the bailout of Bank of America, which in turn had that paper acquisition of Merrill Lynch, really brings it home, all the way into somebody's bathroom at home. It was so brazen, the way that the ship was sinking and he was dispensing with the goods to that closed circle around him, that I think this is really going to have a ripple effect. And David, if I were at Wharton or I were at the University of Chicago or Stanford getting a great education, hoping to end up on Wall Street and make a lot of money, I'd want to string this guy up, because I think that there will be regulation, the profits will be regulated, Wall Street will be regulated, and it's going to go on for a long time.
And Ed, I mean, we hear that there's now an investigation in New York to possible fraud, because if you're a shareholder of Merrill Lynch and this stuff is going on, I mean, you're being misled both about the status of the company, because when the CEO is out there spending $250,000 on a driver, and you don't know how the quarterly earnings report's going to be, you might think, oh, it's probably been a pretty good year.
Well, a lot has happened in 3 days. President Obama called Senator Conrad, the head of the Budget Committee, and said, will you do this? Will you take on a 9/11-style commission investigation? You got a budget of $3 million. You're going to have subpoena power. We got to get to the bottom of this. This is going to be a long, drawn-out story to make sure we get to the bottom of it. It's the due diligence of what has happened. And once these findings come out, then we'll know what to regulate, how to do it, where to go, and how restrictive to be. How restrictive should the government be? Do we get down to the detail of what they can spend the money on? And that's a tough one to define. It's really a tough one to define.
The other thing that's sort of difficult for a lot of people to stomach, Michael, is the CEO of Bank of America. Part of this deal is that Bank of America essentially acquired Merrill Lynch, and they were surprised by how badly the books were at Merrill Lynch. So last week, they had to go to the government and get another $20 billion because of the toxicity of what Merrill Lynch brought to Bank of America. So that's part of the reason why Thane got fired, because Bank of America was so shocked. And yet, I mean, that's another $20 billion that we've had to ship to Bank of America because of the activities of Merrill Lynch.
Exactly. And that's the rub of the matter, is that it's taxpayer money that now ends up paying for it. And it comes at a time when everybody is asking, well, what happened with that first allocation from the TARP funds? And frankly, I don't think the answers have been forthcoming. And you've covered extensively how many banks have refused for a long, long time to identify what they did with the money. So now we look at this and we say, well, is this the explanation? Is this where the first $350 billion ended up? Because we don't want any part of the rest of it.
Absolutely. In fact, that was our hypocrisy watch last week. Bank of America was not explaining what they've done with the money. There may be valid explanations, and I'm sure there are, but they need to come from Bank of America. In any case, Michael Smerconish and Ed Schultz, thank you both very much. Good to see you both.
Good to be here.